Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Here we are reading.
Here we are reading.
Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 17. Chapter The Lord in the Heart. And we say the invocation.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 17. In that transcendental state of Labdopasanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures, and what to speak of any supremacy of the demigods themselves. Nor is there the mode of material goodness, passion, or ignorance, nor even the false ego, material causal ocean, or material nature. Devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods by its manifestations of past, present, and future, does not act on the transcendental plane. The influence of time is exhibited by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, and disease. And these four principles of material conditions are present everywhere in any part of the material cosmos, up to the planet Brahmaloka, where the duration of life of the inhabitants appears to us to be fabulous. Insurmountable time even brings about the death of Brahma, so what to speak of other demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Vayu, and Varuna. The astronomical influence directed by the different demigods over mundane creatures is also conspicuous by its absence. In material existence, the living entities are afraid of satanic influence, but for a devotee on the transcendental plane, there is no such fear at all. The living entities change their material bodies in different shapes and forms under the influence of the different modes of material nature. But in the transcendental state, the devotee is gunatita, or above the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Thus, the false ego of I am the Lord of all I survey does not arise there. In the material world, the false ego of the living being trying to lord it over the material nature is something like the moths falling into a blazing fire. The moth is captivated by the glaring beauty of the fire, and when he comes to enjoy it, the blazing fire consumes him. In the transcendental state, the living being is pure in his consciousness, and as such he has no false ego to lord it over the material nature. Rather, his pure consciousness directs him to surrender unto the Supreme Lord, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vasudeva Savamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. That's 7.19. All this indicates that in the transcendental state there is neither material creation nor the causal ocean for material nature.
The above-mentioned state of affairs is factual on the transcendental plane, but is factually revealed in a transcendentalist knowledge of the advanced state of pure consciousness. Such transcendentalists are of two types, namely the impersonalists and the devotees. For the impersonalists, the ultimate goal or destination is the Brahmajyoti of the spiritual sky. But for the devotees, the ultimate goal is the Vaikuntha planets. The devotees experience the above-mentioned state of affairs by attainment of spiritual forms for activity in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But the impersonalist, because of his neglecting the association of the Lord, does not develop a spiritual body for spiritual activity, but remains a spiritual spark only, merged in the effulgent spiritual rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is the full-fledged form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, but the formless Brahmajyoti is simply eternity and knowledge. The Vaikuntha planets are also forms of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, and therefore the devotees of the Lord who are admitted into the abode of the Lord also get bodies of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. As such, there is no difference between one and the other. The Lord's abode, name, fame, entourage, etc. are of the same transcendental quality, and how this transcendental quality differs from the material world is explained herewith in this verse. It's not, okay. In the Bhagavad Gita, 3 principal subjects have been explained by Lord Krishna, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. But one can reach the Vaikuntha planets by the practice of Bhakti Yoga only. The other 2 are incompetent in helping one reach the Vaikuntha lokas, although they can, however, conveniently take one to the effulgent Brahmajyoti as described above. I thought it was interesting. Prabhupada said at the end that it's only bhakti, gyan, and karma can get you to the Brahmajyoti, but only bhakti can get you to Vaikuntha Loka. So that's very interesting and important point. And also I found it interesting. Earlier, Prabhupada said in material existence, the living entities are afraid of satanic influence.
Well, yeah.
It seemed kind of unusual to say that they're afraid of satanic influence. I mean, but for a devotee on the transcendental plane, there is no such fear at all. So I guess it's just Prabhupada's choice of words, knowing he was writing in English for a Western audience. Somehow he thought that, people are afraid of evil influence.
Devil.
But the devil isn't there so much in Vedic culture idea, I mean, there are devils, but not exactly like Satan, the fallen angel of God kind of thing, But anyway, it's an interesting choice of terms there.
Text 18. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Madhama, my abode, is mentioned several times, and according to the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, there exists the unlimited spiritual sky wherein the planets are called Vaikunthas, or the abode of the Personality of Godhead. In that sky, which is far, far beyond the material sky and its sevenfold coverings, there is no need of the sun or the moon, nor is there necessity of electricity for illumination, because the planets are self-illuminating and more brilliant than the material suns. Pure devotees of the Lord are absolutely in harmony with the Personality of Godhead, or in other words, they always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. They do not care for any mundane creature up to the status of Brahma, the Lord of the universe. Only they can definitely have a clear vision of the Vaikuntha planets. Such pure devotees, being perfectly directed by the Supreme Lord, do not create any artificial perplexity in the matter of transcendental understanding by wasting time in discussing what is Brahman and what is non-Brahman or Maya. Nor do they falsely think of themselves as one with the Lord, or argue that there is no existence of the Lord separately, or that there is no God at all, or that living beings are themselves God, or that when God incarnates himself, he assumes a material body. Nor do they concern themselves with many obscure speculative theories, which are in actuality so many stumbling blocks on the path of transcendental understanding. Apart from the class of impersonalists or non-devotees, there are also classes who pose themselves as devotees of the Lord, but at heart maintain the idea of salvation by becoming one with the impersonal Brahman. They wrongly manufacture their own way of devotional service by open debauchery, and mislead others who are simpletons or debauchees like themselves. All these non-devotees and devotees are, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, Duratmas, or crooked souls in the dress of Mahatmas or great souls. Such non-devotees and devotees are completely excluded from the list of transcendentalists by the presentation of this particular verse by Sukadeva Goswami.
So, the Vaikuntha planets are factually the supreme residential places called the Parampadam. The impersonal Brahmajyoti is also called the Parampadam, due to its being the rays of the Vaikuntha planets, as the sun rays are the rays of the sun. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, it is clearly stated that the impersonal Brahmajyoti rests on the person of the Lord. And because everything rests on the Brahmajyoti directly and indirectly, everything is generated from the Lord. Everything rests on Him, and after annihilation, everything is merged in Him only. Therefore, nothing is independent of Him. A pure devotee of the Lord no longer wastes valuable time in discriminating the Brahman from the non-Brahman, because he knows perfectly well that the Lord, Parabrahman, by his Brahman energy, is interwoven in everything, and thus everything is looked upon by a devotee as the property of the Lord. The devotee tries to engage everything in his service, and does not create perplexities by falsely lording it over the creation of the Lord. He is so faithful that he engages himself, as well as everything else, in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In everything the devotee sees the Lord, and he sees everything in the Lord. The specific disturbance created by a duratma or crooked soul is due to his maintaining that the transcendental form of the Lord is something material. What did you get out of that?
There's nothing independent of Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't need to waste time speculating what is this, what is that. Just get on with the process.
Mm-hmm. There seems to be a lot of distinction being made between the Brahman, what is Brahman, what is the Brahmajyoti, the perspective of personalists and impersonalists, and how one makes progress, like that. How the devotee sees things and how an impersonalist would see things. Yeah.
Mm.
19.
Text 19. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization, and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole, through which stool is evacuated, with the heel of one's foot, and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the 6 primary places. Purport. There are many Duratmas who claim to have realized themselves as Brahman, and yet are unable to conquer material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.54, it is clearly explained that an absolutely self-realized soul becomes completely aloof from all material desires. Material desires are based on the false ego of the living being, and are exhibited by his childish and useless activities to conquer the laws of material nature, and by his desire to lord it over the resources of the 5 elements. With such a mentality, one is led to believe in the strength of material science, with its discovery of atomic energy and space travel by mechanical means, and by such tiny advancements in material science, the false egoist tries to challenge even the strength of the Supreme Lord, who can finish all man's tiny endeavours in less than a second. The well-situated self, or Brahman realized soul, perfectly understands that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is the all-powerful Vasudeva, and that he, the self-realized living being, is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. As such, his constitutional position is to cooperate with him in all respects in the transcendental relation of the served and the servitor. Such a self-realized soul ceases to exhibit his useless activities of attempting to lord it over material nature. Being scientifically well informed, he fully engages himself in faithful devotion to the Lord.
The expert yogi who has thoroughly practiced the control of the life air by the prescribed method of the yoga system is advised to quit the body as follows. He should plug up the evacuating hole with the heel of the foot and then progressively move the life air on and on to 6 places: the navel, the abdomen, heart, chest, palate, eyebrows, and cerebral pit. Controlling the life air by the prescribed yogic process is mechanical, and the practice is more or less a physical endeavor for spiritual perfection. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalists, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable. But in modern days, when the influence of Kali age is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in this art of bodily exercise. Concentration of the mind is more easily attained in these days by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The results are more effective than those derived from the inner exercise of the life air.
Text 20. The meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. Purport. There are 6 circles of the movement of the life air, and the intelligent bhakti yogi should search out these places with intelligence and in a meditative mood. Among these mentioned above is the Swadhisthana chakra, or the powerhouse of the life air, and above this, just below the abdomen and navel, is the Manipuraka chakra. When the meditative devotee searches out the next higher circle of the life air, he reaches the Anahata chakra in the heart, and further up, when the life air is placed at the root of the palate, he reaches the Vishuddha chakra. It's too much trouble.
Yeah, it's much more easy to just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, do we get the effect? I guess, do we feel like if we're lifting the life airs up, I guess there's a difference between meditating on the holy name and chanting the holy name, and really absorbing oneself in the holy name and just mumbling the holy name. That's also there. But yeah, translation of text 21. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air, he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. So the cerebral hole is up here. So this described that that's the place where the soul exits the body, and kind of supposedly the soul enters the body, but it seems that the body is formed around the soul. But there you go. The process of giving up all material connections and returning home back to Godhead, the Supreme, back to God. The process of giving up all material connections and returning home back to Godhead, the Supreme, is recommended herein. The condition is that one should be completely freed from desire for material enjoyment. There are different grades of material enjoyments in respect to duration of life and sensual gratification. The highest plane of sensual enjoyment for the longest period of life is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:20. All are but material enjoyments, and one should be thoroughly convinced that he has no need of such a long duration of life, even in the Brahmaloka planet. He must return home, back to Godhead, and must not be attracted by any amount of material facilities. In the Bhagavad Gita 2:59, it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible to attain when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life, param drishtva navartate. One cannot be freed from the material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. The propaganda by a certain class of impersonalists that spiritual life is void of all varieties is dangerous propaganda to mislead the living entities into becoming more and more attracted by material enjoyments. As such, persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot have any conception of the Param, the Supreme. They try to stick to the varieties of material enjoyments, although they may flatter themselves as being Brahman-realized souls. Such less intelligent persons cannot have any conception of the Param, as mentioned in this verse, and therefore they cannot reach the Supreme. The devotees
have full knowledge of the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, and his transcendental association in unlimited spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Lokas. Herein, Akunta Dristi is mentioned. Akunta and Vaikuntha convey the same import, and only one who has his aim fixed upon that spiritual world and personal association with the Godhead can give up his material connections even while living in the material world. This Param and the Param Dham mentioned in several places in the Bhagavad Gita are one and the same thing. One who goes to the Param Dham does not return to the material world. This freedom is not possible even by reaching the topmost loka of the material world.
The life air passes through 7 openings, namely 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Generally, it passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death. But the yogi, as above mentioned, who controls the life air in his own way, generally releases the life air by puncturing the cerebral hole in the head. The yogi therefore blocks up all the above mentioned 7 openings so that the life air will naturally burst forth through the cerebral hole. This is the sure sign of a great devotee's leaving the material connection.
Text 22.
22.
However, O king, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments like transference to the topmost planet Brahmaloka or the achievement of the eightfold perfections, travel in outer space with the Vihayasas or a situation in one of the millions of planets, then he has to take away with him the materially moulded mind and senses. Purport. In the upper status of the planetary systems, there are facilities thousands and thousands of times greater for material enjoyments than in the lower planetary systems. The topmost planetary systems consist of planets like Brahmaloka and Dhruvaloka, the pole star, and all of them are situated beyond Mahaloka. The inhabitants of those planets are empowered with eightfold achievements of mystic perfection. They do not have to learn and practice the mystic processes of yoga perfection and achieve the power of becoming small like a particle, Anima Siddhi, or lighter than a soft feather, Lagima Siddhi. They do not have to get anything and everything from anywhere and everywhere, Prapti Siddhi. They become heavier than the heaviest, Mahima Siddhi, to act freely even to create something wonderful or to annihilate anything at will, is Sattva Siddhi. To control all material elements, Vasitva Siddhi. To possess such power as will never be frustrated in any desire, Prakamya Siddhi. Or to assume any shape or form one may even whimsically desire, Kama Vasayita Siddhi. All these expeditions all these expediencies are as common as natural gifts for the inhabitants of those higher planets. They do not require any mechanical help to travel in outer space, and they can move and travel at will from one planet to any other planet within no time. The inhabitants of the Earth cannot move even to the nearest planet except by mechanical vehicles like spacecraft, but the highly talented inhabitants of such higher planets can do everything very easily.
Since the materialist is generally inquisitive to experience what is actually in such planetary systems. He wants to see everything personally. And inquisitive persons tour all over the world to gain direct local experience. The less intelligent transcendentalist similarly desires to have some experience of those planets about which he has heard so many wonderful things. The yogi can, however, easily fulfill his desire by going there with the present materialistic mind and senses. The prime inclination of the materialistic mind is to lord it over the material world, and the cities mentioned above are features of domination over the world. The devotees of the Lord are not ambitious to dominate a false and temporary phenomenon. On the contrary, a devotee wants to be dominated by the supreme predominator, the Lord. A desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator, is spiritual or transcendental, and one has to attain this purification of the mind and the senses. A desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator, is spiritual or transcendental, and one has to attain this purification of the mind and the senses to get admission into the spiritual kingdom. With the materialistic mind, one can reach the best planet in the universe, but no one can enter into the kingdom of God. Senses are called spiritually purified when they are not involved in sense gratification. Senses require engagements, and when the senses are engaged totally in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they have no chance to become contaminated by material infections. We should end there.
Okay. So next time we'll start with verse 23.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Just a reminder, we have these wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam second cantos, part 1, with a beautiful picture of Shishi Radhalandanishwar on the front. And if you are interested, please let us know. Send us a message below. If you'd like to give any feedback, we're happy to hear. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.